right, Bitcoin accumulation country. It's that time of the week. It's the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. I'm your host, Coin Icarus, and this is season 3, and this is episode 34. Thank you everyone for joining me again on the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. We are above 12K at this point, but who knows, by the time this gets released, we might even be, above 15. We've got a really great episode. I've got Cory Klippsten, CEO of swanbitcoin, back on again. I've interviewed him once before, and we did the rabbit hole story thing. But in this particular interview, we just talk about, Bitcoin culture, and I just pick Cory's brain about everything and anything, and we talk about some of the new things that are coming to Swan. And it was a really great overall chat that I'm super excited to have you guys listen to. So before we get into that, though, we are going to talk about dollar cost averaging and Swan Bitcoin. For anybody who is interested in dollar cost averaging and who wants to be purchasing Bitcoin but doesn't want to be spending their time constantly watching the charts and listening to traders that they really have no idea whether these people are credible or not, and you kind of just want to put this in a passive sleep mode where you're simply just accumulating and hodling, being able to transfer that Bitcoin out to your own private address. So if you're interested in doing that and that falls in your wheelhouse, then you are looking for Swan Bitcoin. With Swan Bitcoin, the three main takeaways are we can do automatic withdrawal from a bank account, automatic purchases of BTC. You can time them based on your when you receive your check. You can do it let's say once you can do it once a month, or you can do it per pay period as well. There's lots of options for you to be able to customize how you purchase. And you could automatically withdraw to your chosen address. So if you're interested in a Bitcoin-only platform that is doing the great work of helping onboard people, then you definitely want to check out Swan Bitcoin. I'm going to have the link to their website in the show notes. All right, sit back. It's time to chill and check out my awesome chat with Cory Klippsten. Here we go. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me on the Fun with Bitcoin podcast. I've got with me Cory Klippsten from Swan Bitcoin, who is the sponsor of the Fun with Bitcoin podcast, and they are a Bitcoin-only dollar cost averaging company, which, of course, you've heard me say many times before, but this episode isn't going to be really about, diving down the, Cory's, rabbit hole journey. This is much more just about, shooting the shit about the day-to-day and the Bitcoin happenings and, just really getting into Cory's deep thoughts. So, Cory, man, thank you very much for joining me.
Well, it's awesome to be back. I've only done a second appearance on a couple of shows, I think. And, so if anybody wants the rabbit hole journey story, I think we did that last time.
Yeah.
But I'm excited just to catch up with you, man. Obviously, we chat on Twitter and Telegram groups and things like that. But I was really looking forward to this. As I saw it on my calendar today, I was like, man, right in the smack in the middle of my day, I'm going to get to take a lunch break and just and hang with Phil. This is going to be great.
Cool. Thank you so much. And we get to talk about our favorite thing, right? Bitcoin.
I love Bitcoin.
Right?
Dude, I fucking love Bitcoin. It's so awesome. I
love your shirt, actually. I like that.
I can't see you because your camera's not on, which is super creepy.
Oh, my God. I'm so sorry.
There you go. All right. I know we're doing an audio podcast, but yes, it's good.
I'm so sorry. I saw the light on.
So let's describe this shirt that I have on here. Okay. I'm a huge Seattle Supersonics fan, having grown up in Seattle, and obviously the team jetted for Oklahoma City in like 2008. So I have this whole nostalgia, things you lost in the fire kind of thing going with the Sonics. And I was actually recording a show with my brother, and I had deliberately left a Sonics jersey on the chair behind me so he would see it. And then we were just talking about it, and I was like, God damn it, like Seattle Supersonics is so close to if you put Satoshi Nakamoto below the old like 1980s Sonics logo. And so then had RD BTC from Twitter just designed up a little graphic for me, and I got it printed on Zazzle.
I love it. So yeah. You guys gonna sell those shirts?
It's for sale right now. Yeah, you can go to
cool.
Zazzle.com and just look up Swan Bitcoin, and there's tons of. I mean, I got my Swan Force mug here.
Nice.
Yeah, we're all getting fitted. I think Brecky's been wearing Swan trucker hats for the last few weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, but we took a weird approach with merch. We actually we don't take any profit on it, so we just sell it at cost, whatever it costs on Zazzle.
Well, that's really cool of you. So, and Bitcoiners appreciate it because we're always looking for a deal, so
Yeah.
so that's pretty awesome. So, I mean, okay, you know what? Since we're talking about the shirts, why don't we dive right into, because just before the show you were talking about like Bitcoin marketing, and that's something I think is a bit of like a touchy topic, right? Like the Bitcoin marketing, because there's, depending on who you're talking to, some people see it kind of, like Bitcoin needs marketing and, that's the big problem. Other people think, no, you just keep using it and the word gets out there. And, what are your thoughts? You run Swan, and there's a lot going on, and you have to do a lot of marketing. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably just semantics, to be honest. Like, even the people that are dogmatically opposed to the idea that, Bitcoin has or needs or whatever marketing, at the end of the day, it does have it. And that's just because people talk about it a lot. And, word of mouth is perhaps the best form of marketing there is. That's when people pay attention more than anything else. It ain't a billboard. It's not a display ad on a website. When somebody tells you about something, that's the best form of marketing, and that's when things really go viral, and that's when you've done your job as a product marketer, or when a product is really has legs and is going to spread. It's when people want to talk about it. So Bitcoin definitely has that. I mean, we are zealots.
Oh yes,
and crusaders for a bright orange future,
and we love to talk about it.
We do. So, I think anybody that has a podcast or anybody that's even writing messages in Telegram, even if their Telegram message is, Bitcoin doesn't need marketing, well, you're kind of endorsing Bitcoin as being so awesome. And you're telling people that Bitcoin is so awesome that it doesn't mean marketing, and that's a form of marketing. So again, I think it's just kind of semantics. I think I want to say it was Mr. Hodl, I think, actually had the right distinction, which is that what you don't want and what puts Bitcoin and Bitcoiners in a bad light is if somebody's doing false advertising around Bitcoin. And so what you don't want is, James Altucher type display ads, Bitcoin's going to 1 million next week, or, you don't want the shady things around it. You want to just, and we may know because we're in our little echo chamber bubble, and we know it's all about, as Odell says, stay humble, stack sats. But there are a lot of people out there still pitching like get rich quick with Bitcoin. And that's what you do have to look out for. I think that's when people bridle against Bitcoin marketing. They're actually trying to be anti, false or irresponsible advertising, essentially.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you bring up James Altucher, because before I got into Bitcoin, of course, he's one of those newsletters I would check out, and don't get me wrong, he had some pretty interesting points about stocks way back in the day. Not necessarily correct, but he was good at the teaser pitches. But I remember in the 2017 hype, I started seeing him pitch shitcoins, and that's when I knew. I was like, okay, I'm like, this is bad. Like, even though I get it that it's also, because I think there's really no bad news for Bitcoin. There's no bad marketing, or I should say bad publicity. But I think that, to your point, when they start to market the shit coins and you get a lot of people really screwed, I think that's when it starts to leave, because that's when it starts to leave a bad taste in someone's mouth, Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, but even outside of shit coins, I think, you can make false claims about Bitcoin.
Oh,
and you could be it's important to be careful about like where the line is and who your audience is when you're talking about Bitcoin in certain ways. And, even though you're not required to slap disclaimers all over the place around like, this is not financial advice and things like that, because, Bitcoin's not a security. You're a dick if you do make those kinds of claims and don't have some kind of educational warning about, this thing could go down quite a bit. before it goes up.
This is, this is true. It is true, but it's like also at the same time, that I think that's one of the obstacles that we see with Bitcoin. Sometimes, depending on who you're talking to, they compare it too much to a stock or a security. And that's I think that's I actually think that is one of the issues that we have with, I guess, Bitcoin's quote unquote lack of marketing, which I don't think there really is a lack of marketing, but like you said, semantics.
Well, in the pre-show, you said, should we talk about this funnel? But if you think about, I'm not even thinking about it in the terms of the discussion from a few weeks ago, but really, if you think about a customer journey and how somebody's gonna come into Bitcoin, like, it is true that probably the vast majority of people are approaching this first as an investment opportunity. And then the goal is to, get them to understand it better and go deeper and to start thinking about it as, a store of value and try using it out and be ready to use it as a medium of exchange when there's somebody selling something that they want to buy and that person only wants to accept Bitcoin, or you want to set up a store and just kind of like experiment with the tech or whatever. And, it's important to be ready to use this thing as money, because we'll be there before you know it. It seems like time is passing slow, but it's already a unit of account for traders around the world. It's already a medium of exchange for certain communities and edge cases and some remittances and things like that. And like, it's still a thrill, 3 years later, every time I do a Bitcoin transaction, like, it's still a thrill. It's still fucking cool.
Oh my, you know what? Actually, that's I think one of the that's one of the coolest things I like about it, because it's kind of interesting, right? When you go do any other type of transaction, you're using a credit card, you're using cash. I mean, you don't really give a shit. It's you're just doing a transaction. But for some reason with Bitcoin and Lightning, of course, like, you just I don't know. There's something about the personal responsibility that, like, it's gonna sound stupid, but like, that kind of makes me excited. It's like, this is really my own transaction. I fully own this. Like, I cannot, like, if I screw this up, it is truly on me, and there is no turning back. And I kind of like that. It actually makes it more thrilling. It also at the same time makes me a little bit more conscientious about how I'm spending my money or why I'm spending it. So yeah, I think that is, I actually think that's part of Bitcoin's allure in a way.
I think you're right. I mean, there is it probably tickles a little bit of the gambling instinct, or like the adventure sports instinct. Like, there could be there's a risk of loss here. There might be something going on there. I wonder if there's also something going on about, like, cultures that do have a lot more like haggling or like one-off transactions or something like that. I don't know. Maybe there's something there about just makes me think of like the Mediterranean souks and markets and things like that for some reason. Because you're trying to like you have to think, because of the transaction finality, you have to be more sure about the service or goods that you're paying for.
So let me ask you this.
It just like, it encourages more negotiation and more haggling somehow than otherwise. Like, I just like, because if you don't like a service, like, if I think that LA Fitness or Equinox or whatever is like gonna mess with me over my membership, like, I'm just gonna complain to MX, and MX is gonna take my side, because that's always a shitty merchant, right? But you don't have that with Bitcoin. Like, so if I was paying for something with Bitcoin, I have to be a little bit more sure about the product or service. Makes me more thoughtful about what I'm buying.
Right? More thoughtful. There's more of like a kind of like a trust element going on over there, because let's face it, right? Because everything is offset to our third party. We don't really have to trust. All we simply need to do is trust that, the third party will refund our money if we're not happy. So, but that is something that's going to be kind of interesting to see, that some of the benefits of having a third party and how we capture or recapture some of those benefits in the future with Bitcoin. Like, how do you get back
some of the power that the payer, the consumer, has today with intermediaries like Amex and Visa, and some of the good things about having intermediaries, and how do you do those and reconstruct them in a Bitcoin way that's actually better, whether it's through, escrow multi-sig type things or, reputation scores. I think everybody's going to have a lot more. I think you're going to actually have a lot more, scoring of merchants and service providers, and people are going to care a lot more about who provides those scores and who proves that those scores were, derived from votes by real customers and things like that. Like, you're going to have to get the games out of so much of, this like Trustpilot, Yelp, holding people hostage basically with shit reviews and bad review processes, so that you like pay for the premium and can get your reviews, checked by the third party or whatever. Like, that'll all get washed out, and you'll actually have to have proper reputation that's actually closely guarded by the providers of that scoring. I think that will all have to get way, way better.
That's interesting, and that kind of sounds like that Black Mirror episode. I don't know if you ever saw that one there. The
Nosedive.
I think so. It's the one with the it was the one with the social what is it? The social ranking to go and become the like the star. And you have to sit there on the bike and just keep biking to,
Oh, yeah. That was like, that was really early on. That was 15 million credits with the guy that ended up being in Get Out. And it was, it was the girl was from Downton Abbey. Yeah, that was a fantastic episode. And he was like shard guy.
It was, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like that episode definitely, it kind of creeped me out, of course. Just because like you can see what's happening there. But I have seen, like, there's also there was another show as well where they did a whole entire thing where, based on what you did, like someone would either give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and it was live and constant, right? So it was every interaction you were having. So I think that these social scoring systems, although are super, super cool, they do kind of, scare the crap out of me.
I don't want anything to do with social scoring. That's just terrible, and that's what's happening in China right now. So I'm not interested in that. I do think good reviews of products and services are going to be very important.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I wanted to ask you something though, because you mentioned something about the the people living out, like, let's say in the Mediterranean islands and stuff like that. About 10 to 15 years ago, there was, or maybe it was even 20 years ago. I'm old, but I recall seeing a number saying 80% of the world's transactions are done in cash, right? And only 20% were actually. It gives us an idea of how big our, I guess, how big the electronic economy is. And I guess what I started to think was that, what would it take to get those people that really only know cash to start using Bitcoin?
Well, I think the phones have changed that significantly.
It must have, right?
It must have already changed quite a bit. And then, just like payments has advanced by leaps and bounds. I mean, point of sale systems are super cheap now, right? You can just plug something right into your phone, and what we see with Square here in the US, there are versions of that every other place around the world that I've been. I've checked out on iPhones and iPads in Portugal and Italy and Turkey and different places over the last 5 or 10 years. So I think a lot of it has just come about with the telecommunications and internet revolution. So I suspect it's probably already headed that direction. But yeah, I think it'll be, I don't know. I mean, you just have to keep on abstracting it away and making it easier and easier, so that somebody just like doesn't really care what they're paying with, and has a sense that, as soon as you have a sense that, this thing is going to be somewhat stable, at least over the next few weeks, which we're probably 2 cycles away from.
Yeah.
That's probably like a late 20s kind of thing. I think so many people will be very comfortable with that. And again, you're crossing over the volatility of some currencies already, right? Like, I'd rather have Bitcoin than the Lebanese pound, and I'd rather have Bitcoin than a lot of other currencies, even in a a current account, a checking account for my expenses. if I were in probably a good quarter to a third of the countries around the world, Bitcoin is better than their local currency on stability already.
So, I mean, in talking about the Bitcoin volatility, right? Recently, I don't know about you, but I've been seeing articles, about Bitcoin's sweet spot, between 7 to 10K. And I think I saw Brady put out a tweet. I think it was yesterday or the day before, mentioning how the last time we trended in a certain range was before we had our next run up. What are your thoughts on the Bitcoin price these days?
Yeah, I think he said it basically ranged just sideways for 5 months in 2016 before starting to go up again. And yeah, I mean, I was explaining this to my brother earlier this morning, who's relatively new to Bitcoin, and you know, there's this concept of like how long an asset has traded above a certain level, and how much of that asset has traded above a certain level. And what's really hard for people to remember, because all we've been bludgeoned with for 3 years since, almost 3 years now, more, since the end of 2017, is it went up to 19.6, right? But it was above $17,000 for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it was above $15,000 for less than 48 hours. So, if you really look at like, where did Bitcoin spend a decent amount of time? Like, it didn't really spend hardly any time. It spent 3 weeks above 10K in late 2017, early 2018. Like, it wasn't much. So this period of time where we're just, plugging away after the depths of Black Thursday on, what was that, March 12th, and and charging up pretty quick back up to the 7, 8, and then now being above 9 in the sort of 9 to 10 range for 6-7 weeks now, or whatever it is. There's a lot of coin trading here, and there's a lot of people buying in for the first time, or adding to their stack, or just like their average entry point is just getting anchored in their brains and in their actual financial accounts at this level. And this is always going to feel like a good price for a lot of people going forward. So yeah, it does feel like we're putting in some kind of really solid base here, around 9. It also means it's hard to break out, but I think I don't know, I'm still pretty optimistic about at least one big charge up through the high of last summer before the end of this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Like I'd handicap this at, I think there's over 50% chance that sometime in the next 5.5 months will be above 13.8.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely do. I mean, I just, when I look at this type of accumulation, and I was in this before we had that 2017 run, and I was starting to watch the Bitcoin prices before then, and I'm starting to feel this like familiar type of, like, it's not just the Bitcoin price, but it's the environment, right? We've got a bunch of people who were quote unquote Bitcoin only, who all, are pro Bitcoin now all of a sudden, coming out with a lot more shit coining. We see a lot more new accounts, coming onto Twitter that are just, shilling whatever the hell they can shill. So it's all very familiar feeling, more and more scams, that are popping up on YouTube. So you're trying to take whatever they can from you. So I'm starting to have that familiar feeling that we're definitely, at the very least, to your point, we're going to make another run at least for last summer's high. If not more. So. If not more, because I feel like there's more people.
Yeah. No, and I mean, again, and I expect a face melting run next year.
Oh yeah.
So this conversation is just time boxing now between now and the end of 2020. So yeah, I mean, I'll be super disappointed if we're not in the 6 figures next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely disappointed, but still hopeful. Disappointed, but still hopeful, depending on, what it is. One thing I realized during the bear market was this. I didn't pay attention to price, and I just paid attention to development. And you know what? I never once for a second felt like it was like we were slipping behind. Not once. when I paid attention to the development, because you know what, regardless of what the Bitcoin price is doing, the type of technology that they're, building around Bitcoin and in Bitcoin is just absolutely incredible. So I'm excited. Taproot, of course, which I know is probably a year out, but there's some other interesting technologies that they're trying to build on top of that.
Yeah.
So
has it been pushed out that far?
I was talking about it I think 3 months ago with Aoi on Ayi on Telegram, and so right now I think we're waiting. It's it's reached that point where everybody has accepted that it's got to go in, but it hasn't moved beyond that point.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean it's just the devs working on Bitcoin full time or near full time are just spectacularly talented and incredibly intelligent. And it's funny, man. I mean, we're hearing so much noise about DeFi and what's that? Oh, Chainlink. It's popping all over the place. I saw Cardano just popped into the top 6 or something. I think it passed BSV for a minute. I don't know, man. I don't have anything left in me that's trying to get rich quick and try to catch some popcorn alts. It's just so funny. I'm trying to explain to people okay, so Cardano just ran up whatever it did, 5x or 6x or whatever. It's still down 90% after this incredible run up. It's still down 90% in Bitcoin terms from its all-time high.
Exactly.
So how are you going to time this? And then now you're going to start dealing with taxes, and you're going to be a trader. I don't know. And which one are you going to pick? You wouldn't have picked Cardano.
No. There's what was it? So in 2017 there was, I remember this. There was approximately 1,800 alts. That was back then. So if you ask me, there's at least 1,800 now. Most of them are, because alts never really, none of this stuff ever dies, right? It just sits as a zombie. It doesn't do anything. It has no network usage. There's no coding behind it. It's just a zombie coin. And I'm not saying Cardano's a zombie coin, but I'm saying that it requires people to go and move their valuable liquid Bitcoin into this unknown, not liquid shitcoin. And I just don't see the Schelling point moving that way. So I just don't.
But no, I think we're already in the early stages of our bright orange future, and it's a great place to be. And I think a much healthier approach to making money is to do things where you have a comparative advantage, whatever it is. You want to build houses, or be a marketer, or whatever it is. Just do what you're good at and stack as many sats as you can.
So speaking of which, right, you were just mentioning DeFi. I don't know if you saw that stupid tweet from what's his name? Is it Kurt Berneskis? No, it's
Bernisky.
Bernisky. Is it Chris? Anyways, yes. I see some of his shitcoin stuff out there, and I hate it. He tried to sit there and pull Bitcoin into his DeFi comments, and it's dude, Bitcoin may be quote unquote decentralized financed, but in no way is it a shitcoining platform like DeFi. DeFi just looks like what Ethereum looked like in 2017. It's just another layer that they built on top of it, the original, right? Because everybody spawned their shitcoins on Ethereum in 2017, and everybody bought this crap. And now, DeFi looks like it's doing the same thing, but trying to get people in with this bullshit term called yield farming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, what's kind of interesting. So it is the next wave of essentially just a lot of money sloshing around. And so what is there that's kind of interesting is bankers and traders. So let's include VCs and bankers. They're just people that are affecting transactions and have kind of insider information, and basically use their information flows and their access and their deal making prowess, or their ability to take people to the right strip club or whatever it is that gets them access to the deals. Because there's so much money sloshing around, people can make a lot of money by taking it from other people. But the pie isn't growing. Like there's no like extra money coming in. There's nothing of value being created there. It's basically like yield farming is just taking, it's essentially like your buddy in Cleveland or Chicago that was the first one to pass out to everybody on Facebook your Uber sign up code, and they got free rides for like 2 or 3 years. Like that's basically what it is. Like you're just like, it's VCs and dumb retail essentially subsidizing these traders and these yield farmers that are clocking yields or whatever that is like way higher than market rate for what they're providing. And there's just a ton of blow up risk in it. You're seeing hacks left and right and blow ups and all these things. Like it's just on such a rickety thing. What's interesting, I think, that's a little bit different with DeFi is the Ethereum long con, and it is a bird of a feather with Ripple. Like Ethereum is looking more and more like Ripple every day to me. What's different about ICOs and DeFi is there are a lot more smart people, by smart terms and air quotes. I think Thiele would call them IYIs, like intellectual yet idiots. But people that are credentialed, people at Andreessen, people from Stanford, MIT, whatever. There are a lot of those types working in DeFi, and they're blind to what they're looking at because nothing in their social circle is indicating to them that they're not right. Because all of these smart people that they've just been acclimated to, there's hedge fund guys that think DeFi is interesting. They're getting calls from people on Wall Street like, oh, 8% yield, that sounds dope. I'm getting like 0.1% over here. So there's all these signals from your social network. And I empathize with that to a degree because, I was suckered in by the social signals of ICOs and venture capital and, a lot of the smart people that I knew in venture and startups and Google and, like my work circle got pulled into that bullshit in 2017. It took me like almost a year and a lot of fucking podcasts and thank God, some hard conversations with people that helped me see the light before I came out the other side and understood Bitcoin a lot closer to what it is, and obviously continued my education since. So, I don't know. I think that, even if Bitcoin goes up, let's say Bitcoin, goes up, gets 10 times more people involved in this cycle than it did in 2017, and does a much better job of keeping people away from altcoins and scams, and like does twice as good. You could still see 5 times more people getting into this cycle's version of ICOs, even though Bitcoin and Bitcoiners are doing a much better job, just because I expect the wave to be so big.
I think it's going to be insane. It really is. I think that we didn't accurately. I believe that we underestimate Bitcoin and what it can do, and I think that alone is just going to create that that face melting move and the face melting moves that people are talking about. Yeah. So that's definitely on the way.
I'll summarize that though. I am not optimistic that we'll see the end of shitcoins anytime soon. Probably not in my lifetime.
Oh no, we definitely look. Don't get me wrong, but think about it, right? Like the reality is, people still try to start new Ponzi schemes.
Right.
People, you know what I mean? Like to this day, they're still pulling the same scams they were pulling 10 years ago. And they're using the traditional system to do it. They're still pulling the same scams they were doing 50 years ago. It's slightly changed forms, but it's the same thing. I mean, it's kind of like how, multi-level marketing, right? The pyramid scheme became multi-level marketing, and then multi-level marketing sounded like crap. So now it's network marketing.
By the way, I'm having a Tupperware party later. Can you and the wifey come by? I'm gonna sell you some Tupperware.
Exactly,
it's gonna be great.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it's so that's exactly the thing.
Dude, acai juice. It's only $40 a bottle, but you can sell it to somebody else for $60.
It's got nutrients, okay? Specialized nutrients.
Trust the knowledge of the Amazon.
There was something else though that I wanted to get into with you because I didn't actually get the chance to talk to you about it very much. But I saw that you kind of started you went off and did your own you started your own show, right? Or like something like not Bitcoin related, but getting into Bitcoin or something.
So we're working on it. It's a work in progress. So here's the deal. I know that it's the right thing for the company, for Swan Bitcoin, to have me out there a little bit more. And I didn't want to. It's one of the reasons that I, surrounded myself with people that do plenty of media. Jan wrote a book and is great on podcasts, and Brady has his own show and he's awesome hosting Swan Signal Live. And, Brandon Quittem, is always doing his mushroom and Bitcoin song and dance all over the place and writing incredible pieces. But it does seem pretty clear that I do need to put myself out there a little bit more, and that it's good for the company, and it's good practice for me to connect with people, etc. And so I'm gonna do it. And the question is just what's the format of the show and what's it for? So I've got a brother, and he's awesome. He's my older brother, and I have a ton of respect for him. He's incredibly charismatic. He's been, been a local rock star in Seattle for a decade, and he's been in the service industry, running bars and owning restaurants and stuff for 20 some years, and still does that. He owns a restaurant up in Seattle and still plays music and hangs out with musicians and stuff. And he also likes Bitcoin a lot. He's been, kind of sniffing around it since 2015, 2016, and, has a little bit. But with me going way, way deeper, obviously the last few years, he started to catch up a little bit, in particular over the last, 6 months to a year or so. So there's the makings of a show there where, I'll show up for the taping if I know I get to see my brother. And then, B, I'll be much more likely to be, somewhat natural and just have like a fun rapport if I know that he's there and listening, and I know what he's going to say in response to most questions I'd ask. So it's just kind of like much easier to shoot. So the combination, like something with my brother that's kind of about Bitcoin, feels like it should work. What we started, so it's called Ugly Duckling in the Bright Orange Future, which sounds like a 90s band, which is great. Thank you. Appreciate that. I think we might just shorten it to Bright Orange Future. Which is, obviously like a tip to Bitcoiners that we're kind of talking about Bitcoin sometimes, but not necessarily blasting people in the face that might listen to it without necessarily signing up for a Bitcoin show. And so we talk about music and culture and the future. I think what we're kind of headed toward is probably a guest-driven show where we get people to come on and talk about their area of expertise, and then basically have a discussion about where their area of interest will go in the future, and what will be good about it and what will be bad about it, and how you can prepare to ameliorate some of the negative effects of, like, whether it's AI or driverless cars or real estate tech or Bitcoin or some aspect of geopolitics or deflationary economics or whatever it is. So there'll be like a lot of Bitcoin and Bitcoin adjacent topics, and then some just wild cards. But because I'll be the host and my brother's there, we'll work Bitcoin into the conversation here and there and see what happens. So I think that's probably where we're headed. But yeah, it's interesting. I got a lot of appreciation for you guys that have been podcasting for a while, man, because it's, when you put out a dud show, we've done 6 of them so far. Like it takes me a good 24 to 48 to get over not feeling awesome about the show.
No, don't, I mean, it's, you know how it goes. And I mean, I don't have to tell you, like, you have a great attitude, and I think you have a great personality, and you're very easy to speak to. So it's all about persistence. That's really what it is. You just got to keep at it. And eventually the momentum catches up with what you're doing. I mean, I can tell you, like, nobody has ever heard my first shows. Right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go and point anybody to it. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for you, because I think you have I just think you have a very nice outgoing personality. So, and you also seem to, you seem to really plan this out. And like you said, you're talking with your brother, and it makes the rapport, like, just the flow so much better. Like, I could tell you I had none of those things. And listening back to my first episodes, I'm proud that I did them, but I wouldn't shill them. So what, you've done 6 episodes now, right?
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. Like, I think that's great. And so do you put one out? How often do you put them out?
So that's the other thing. So we're doing 2 a week of like, 25 to 30 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes. And I think we're going to go down to like once a week in more like 45 minutes. We had our first guest episode. So the first 5 were just us talking, and then we did one with a guest, and it just felt really, really tight and cramped trying to fit that into like 30 minutes. So I just want to give it a little more room to breathe.
Yeah, it's okay. So look, this is what I found. Alone, if you're going to talk alone, you can probably keep the audience captive for, let's say 15 to 22 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, for real. Unless you're incredibly charismatic or have this totally awesome story every time, it's really difficult. But once you get to 2 people, I find it's always going to be over 30 minutes unless one or both of the people are really either poor storytellers, or they're very blunt in how they speak, or they're just introverted and they don't really, they just don't want to tell the story.
Yeah.
They don't want to get into it.
Yeah, I guess the other thing is, if you do a lot of post, and so you only take like the best questions and answers and you tighten it up. There's a show this young kid started a few years ago called 20-Minute VC, where he interviews like VCs and startup founders, and it's always 20 minutes. But I think he does pretty heavy post and takes out a lot of gaps and probably like takes out whole chunks of conversations to come up with a tight 20. And I don't really want to do all that post.
That's the other thing, which, don't get me wrong, like, for me, I will go and take a look at the person's profile. If they did any, like you do Swan Bitcoin, give Bitcoin. I go and check out the websites and stuff like that. And then I'll just probably think of like maybe 3 to 5 questions. But most of the time, like when we did when I got to have you on the first time for the rabbit hole, I don't do any preparation, because I just want it to be natural. Because if it's not, then it feels mechanic. And the reality is that the audience can feel mechanic speech. And it's brutal. It's like you're grinding through it, like nobody wants to listen to it. You don't want to be saying it. It just sucks, man. I don't know. It's a weird.
I did a show, and I will definitely not name drop it. I just did it like in a weak moment. Somebody random hit me up on Twitter, and I was like, sure, whatever. So I record it, and the guy he literally reading the questions to me.
Ooh.
So I did like a half hour, and he read a question, and I answered it, and then he read another question, and I answered it, and I almost fell asleep during the interview. Like while recording the interview, I almost fell asleep. That was the subject of the interview. Anyway, it's pretty funny.
But isn't that cringe? It's like you're like, I feel so bad.
It's so bad, but I was like, maybe I misjudged this gentleman's age, and maybe he's a high school kid. I don't know. Yeah. I just imagined he was like the kid from Almost Famous, and I was nice to him.
That's awesome. Like, you know what though? I never turn the podcast down. I've said yes to, not like I'm anyone of like stature, but I've never said no to anybody, because number one, I always want to talk about Bitcoin. Number two, it's going to be good practice for them, and it's going to be good practice for you too. Well,
I look forward to seeing you on Hotep Jesus and Richard Hart next week.
Oh wow! Okay, you called me on that one. Fucking got me on that one. Okay, so you found 2 places I won't go.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
Don't need to do those ones.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh God, I wasn't expecting that, Cory. Man, you're sharp. I was not expecting that.
Well, I feel bad because I didn't know anything about like Hex and Richard Hart. I think I guess he has a long history and whatever. I just couldn't imagine that it would be that bad. And so when Stefan got hit up like by Richard Hart, like, you want to come on my show and talk about Bitcoin, And he hit me up on DM and was like, should I go on the show? Like, what do you think about going on, crypto platforms or whatever? And I'm all for, like, I'll go do altcoin daily. I'll go do like crypto beetles, BitBoy. I don't give a shit. I'll talk to Wendy O. Like if somebody, I haven't even been on these shows, but like, if they asked me, I would absolutely go have a conversation with someone that's like relatively conscientious and, isn't going to totally try to manipulate the conversation and isn't going to like, try to make Bitcoin look bad or something like that. Right. And Stefan and multiple other people that took that invite during the Hex marketing tour, man, did he play a lot of us like a fiddle. I felt so bad for saying like, who cares? Like, don't put them on your platform. Don't give them, your audience, but sure, go show Bitcoin to their audience. But yeah, he was doing some next level podcast scamming there, turning down people's microphones and, talking over them. And like, he was really prepared, like a high school debate champion for what he was about to do. That was peak Ponzi charlatanism right there.
Yeah, man, he is quite the sociopath. And I do have to give a shout out though to, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I'm like totally forgetting Giacomo. I have to give a shout out to Giacomo, because when he brought Giacomo on that pod, Giacomo trolled him back so hard. And it was beautiful. He did the Zucks coin, and he told him that he's going to make it with more pumpamentals. And he just, so everything Richard was saying, Giacomo would just up it, so
that's amazing.
And like, because it doesn't matter. And Giacomo's like, it's not real anyways. Right. So,
yeah.
And like, what's Richard going to do? Can't fucking argue with this guy. It's going to make him look like a schmuck. So, because he always keeps his cool no matter what. I'm talking about Richard, he always, like,
I know.
Very few times I saw him blow his lid, and it was never during the Hex shit. So
unfortunately, very few of us have Giacomo's skills to spit out perfectly formed paragraphs ex-temp in the moment. I don't know if you've ever been in a room where, somebody's arguing about something and Giacomo just likes to record his voice. And like, if you take the transcript of what he says, it'll be like better than what I would do if I sat down for 2 hours and like wrote an essay. So he just like, he thinks very structured and in real time can just like dance circles around people. I think maybe it's like the politics and maybe just like a lot of dense matter between his ears or whatever. But yeah, not everybody can do that in real time.
I can't. I definitely can't. I might be able to, pull it off for a certain matter of seconds. But that's about it. Eventually I'll lose my train of thought and not be able to, keep everything all together. So,
and it's not even his native goddamn language. Like, dude, I would be like, if I tried to argue in Italian, I would just sound like Stallone getting punched.
I wouldn't even try. You know what? I'm good at recognizing my limitations. I would bow out even before I could start in that, because it's just not. It wouldn't work for me. Oh man. Yeah, exactly. But okay, so so let me ask you this. So you've done 6 episodes. We're going back to your podcast now.
So Bright Orange Future.
Bright Orange Future. Okay, so now we're not going to go with the ugly. I apologize.
Ugly Duckling.
The Ugly Duckling and the Bright Orange Future.
Today it's called Ugly Duckling and the Bright Orange Future, which is, that's the working title, and that's where the first 6 episodes. So so Bright Orange Future. So here's kind of what I'm personally interested in talking about, and the kind of guest that I think I want to book, and I think that's what you want to get at.
Yeah.
Is so I thought that the way that Peter Thiele laid out the quadrant of optimism versus pessimism and definite versus indefinite for how a person or a culture can view the future was one of the most fascinating and meaningful 2x2 diagrams that I'd ever seen. And you're talking to a B school management consultant who's done probably 10,000 2x2 matrices for different things over the years. And that's like my favorite one. And so basically, to lay it out for anyone that didn't run across it or hasn't read it, first of all, read 0 to 1. You can like or hate Peter Thiele and whatever, but like, that book's brilliant. And basically you could take a culture like the United States and essentially up until World War II, so call it like from the founding of the country up through World War II and into the 50s, basically until, the 60s, we were definite optimists. We had a view of what the future would be, and we we're going to go to the moon, and we're taking over the world, and everybody's going to be rich, and we're going to do better than our parents, and our kids are going to do better than us, and it's just like the inexorable march of progress, and we're optimistic, and we know where we're going. And then the 60s hit, and the Cultural Revolution, and the destruction of heroes, and understanding it wasn't, the mainstream media was only showing and telling stories of people that were on top, and not exploring the paths and the pain of people that were not benefiting from this march toward progress. And then, so the Cultural Revolution, the American version, not the Maoist version. And, the hippies, and then the 70s just sucked with stagflation and New York City going bankrupt and just crime and pimps and all that stuff. And then 80s me decade. And, again, just like, anyway, so basically like the last, 50 years is since 1970. So basically anyone from Gen X or younger has essentially grown up their entire lives in what I would say is probably much more like indefinite optimism. And I'd say that lasted probably until, depending on, how close you were to like GFC, I'd say indefinite optimism lasted through 2008 or potentially through like now, depending on your view and how you did in this bull market and, how disrupted you personally were. I think that we've been in a transition toward indefinite pessimism for the last 12 years. And I think that we're kind of squarely in it right now. Like we don't know where we're going, and we're pessimistic about it as a nation right now, broadly. And, the only thing that's given me a lifeline out of this really was Bitcoin. And that's what I think it's so important to have something that we can actually see the path by which Bitcoin could make things so much better. And it's definite, like it's rational, and there's no way around the reality of some very, very large things that will happen that will rearrange the pieces on the game board that are just going to like toss this game board out and bring out a new game board, right? A new protocol through which we organize 7+ billion people around the world around state-free money. And so that's just fascinating. Like you can't really be into Bitcoin and not be a definite optimist.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And it's kind of funny, right? Because some people think that we have to be doomsdayers, right? But it's quite the opposite.
It's the opposite. It's totally the opposite. And that's why the show is called Bright Orange Future.
I like it.
Because that's what it's all about. It's about what will the future be like, and what will be good about it, and what will be bad about it, and how can you take steps early on. And there's so much economic opportunity in understanding what some of those downsides will be, because we're going to have a lot of disruption, and some things that actually work really well with stateful money and trusted intermediaries. Like there are a lot of things that work really well there. Yep. And we're going to rip that out and create a new base layer, but we're going to want to, maintain or solve some of those problems that are solved by the current system in different ways. Just like the internet came through and remade every other industry, like Bitcoin will put it in, but we're going to want to have a lot of things that we're used to still exist. And a lot of them are going to break with a new base layer.
Yep, they are.
Right. And so that's where I think that's the next 20 years of startup innovation is not DeFi, which is, as Bitcoin Tina would call it, skeuomorphic, which is basically just trying to recreate things that actually look just like the old thing, but saying that it's new.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, hey, we're going to have interest accounts and we need inflation and all this shit. It's like, nah, bro. It's like we're moving to a whole different thing. Bitcoin's a deflationary currency. It's limited supply. Like you're going to see almost all equity investments and like the destruction of the credit-based system, et cetera, et cetera. So what are these other things that are going to come about? And I think it's going to be interesting because now, as opposed to like all this, these blockchain startup bullshits that are like AI plus blockchain, ML plus blockchain, VR plus blockchain, all of those things plus Bitcoin or Bitcoin enabled or solving problems that, that Bitcoin creates, that a new system by definition will create so much, damage along with all the good. There's going to be so much opportunity in fixing each one of those problems. So I want to try to figure out what are those things. And this dovetails really nicely with Bitcoiner Ventures because, that we started a firm that will eventually hopefully become like a properly capitalized fund. But bitcoinerventures.com is just an AngelList syndicate where we chip into funding rounds for Bitcoin only companies. Our first deal was Unchained Capital in May, and we would like to fund another one in kind of the fall window, like September through November. So we're kind of early looking at some companies right now. And, we can't kick in much because it's a small syndicate. We've got like 65 LPs, but we want to cut a check of maybe 150 to 200 in this next one. What that should be over time is it should shift from investing in Bitcoin only companies to continuing to do that. But in 5 years, I'd like to be investing in startups started by Bitcoiners.
So
that are solving these problems that are created by the disruption of ripping out the base layer and putting in a better one.
And that's exactly, I think that's exactly what Bitcoiners are doing. I think slowly but surely that's exactly what's happening. But I want to go back to what you just said about funding another one in, you said the fall time frame. So you guys, are you still taking on new investors and stuff like that? Because I got to be honest, I'm part of the group and I've often scrolled through it and it's like, you know what? I don't know why I haven't persisted in it, because I find it's a good way that those of us who, work our normie jobs and convert our fiat into Bitcoin, this is also one of the ways that we can contribute when we don't write code. It's like, I'm not a code writer, but hey, maybe if I could fund somebody who does, that can make a difference, then that matters.
Yeah. I think it's largely the burden of the people that are very wealthy to do that. As it is for angel investing. First of all, to qualify on AngelList, you have to be accredited, which means, making over 200 a year as an individual or over 300 as a couple, or having like $1 million of liquid assets or something. So the bar is kind of high. So I don't suggest that people that aren't really interested in angel investing do this, because the hurdle rate of, taking that money and instead of holding it in Bitcoin, choosing to put that into a startup, I wouldn't suggest that for most people that are, retail level investors. I think it's a much better idea to just stack more sats. That said, there are a lot of people that have a good bit of money, a good bit of wealth, and they have a good bit of Bitcoin, and they, if Bitcoin does what they think it's going to do, they'll be fine because they have their, double or triple digit numbers of Bitcoins or whatever. And they're already, used to investing in companies or running companies of their own, or investing in real estate or investing in stocks and bonds, and maybe cutting checks for startups in the past or whatever. And, you have the right, but not the obligation to invest in a given deal with Bitcoiner Ventures. So as long as you're qualified on AngelList and sitting there in the syndicate, you get all the information and you can, decide deal by deal if you want to participate. And then it comes down to is this a good investment decision? Is this a company that I believe in? Can I actually personally help affect the outcome for this company? Or do I just, you might contribute to Patreon? That is certainly the motivation. I wouldn't doubt that 20 or 30% of the money that came into our little allocation for Unchained Capital was essentially just people that like Joe and Drew and Will and Phil and Parker and love the blog and think that, building Bitcoin native financial services and not doing it by relying on, a bunch of shitcoin interest scamming, KYC giving up operations, just actually running a good Bitcoin company, deserved a little, they just wanted to participate in that, have a seat at the table and be able to tell people that they were, small investors in it. So that certainly can be part of it too, but absolutely the goal is not charity. And I also just want to make super clear. So the four partners are myself, Jan Pritzker, Stefan Livera, and Louis Liu. and we take no fees and no carry. So it's actually just for networking and for fun and for doing something for Bitcoin for us, and just to kind of have like better access and better knowledge and meet more people. And we invest on the exact same terms in every deal alongside the syndicate. So we only do a deal if all 4 of us agree that we will invest alongside on the same terms as anyone else.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And we don't have any upside or benefit from other people's money coming in.
Very cool. So I'm sorry. I just I wanted to go back to something you said about your podcast. I've added 0 to 1 to my Audible wishlist because even though I don't care for Peter Thiele, I've heard the same thing that you said. Doesn't matter what you think. Read that book. It's a great book. So I'm definitely going to do it. But I just wanted to ask, I don't know if you touched on it, but so what type of guests are you looking to get on your podcast? Because it sounds to me like you're not looking necessarily to chat with Bitcoiners per se.
So we will, but I think it'll be a mix.
Okay.
I think it'll be, yeah, I mean, they're certainly going to have some Bitcoiners on, some of the authors and podcasters, et cetera. Like, I mean, you really think I'm not going to want to talk to some Bitcoiners? Of course I'm going, like, if I deliberately set out to not book any Bitcoiners, it'll still be like 25% of the guests. Like, that's just going to happen because that's how it's going to be.
That's awesome.
But I absolutely, like, we want to talk to, we're going to talk to authors and scientists and, politicians and, just a wide range. I want to talk to VCs and startup founders. I mean, that's a world that I come from. So it's going to be really easy for us to book, any sort of startup investor or startup founder. Not any, but a lot of the people that I would want to talk to that are doing interesting new things and are going to want to, be on a podcast and spread the word about what they're doing. I think that could be interesting. And I think that'll be really interesting for, a lot of Bitcoiners to see what's out there. Cause I think there are a lot of misconceptions, especially for younger Bitcoiners that haven't had any exposure to, venture capital, banking, hedge funds, traders, private equity, all these different other areas or politics or whatever. And there's it's certainly easy to dismiss all of it as not Bitcoin, therefore not interesting, or they're all scammers, or they're all just like evil and we're going to get rid of all of them. And it's like, no, we're kind of just going to like tear out all of the institutions that don't fit with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's just going to do it for them. Mm-hmm. It's going to get rid of things that don't fit Bitcoin. But the people are going to be the same. And the vast majority of Bitcoin, the vast majority of the 18 million that we're talking about is today in the hands or has legal ownership of people in the categories that I just mentioned. We're in a couple of Telegram groups together, and, there are individuals that I know from my, previous work life that own more Bitcoin without really even caring about it. They'd be like in the 10th percentile in a room of 200, there'd be 180 people that care about Bitcoin more than they do, but they own more Bitcoin than all 200 of those people combined.
Wow.
Because it's just a trade for them. It's just like, it's just a hedge. It's just a bet. And they got a few thousand Bitcoins that they bought back in 2013 or 2016 or 2018 or whatever, just because they wanted to hedge their wealth because they're worth 9 figures or 10 figures.
Yep. And that makes sense, but it's
frustrating to me because I have an argument with somebody from my old life. This happened to me. It's really still pisses me off to this day, but it's a buddy of mine from the Chicago days that always can needle me because of his insane levels of wealth. But, I was explaining to him on the phone in the same, 45-minute conversation about a year ago. I spent like half the conversation, explaining to him why Bitcoin is not MySpace and there's no Facebook around the corner. But it also became like extremely clear to me that the guy also owned probably 10 times more Bitcoin than me.
Well, you know what? It's kind of cool though that you're talking to him about it though. And you're, so at least he knows maybe he's in good company. Right?
He is not selling. That's for sure.
No, there you go. That's what matters. It's like he's not selling. So he obviously sees the bright orange future.
There you go.
Definitely sees it.
I think we're going to end up with a Coin Icarus segment on occasion.
Oh, wow. Man, I would be, you know me, I would be honored and humbled. I am just a Bitcoin plebe, and it would be cool, you know?
Yeah.
So I would be excited.
Yeah.
But just to, I guess at this point, maybe we'll,
Can I tell your people just like the next few things we got coming up for Swan?
Oh, please do. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay. Haven't just started doing podcasts again, so I'm just trying to let people know what's up. So,
awesome. Yes, please.
So obviously we launched March 30th, and it's just, weekly or paycheck or monthly automatic stacking, and it's only funding through ACH. We are very quickly adding a bunch of things over the next month or two. So we'll be adding basically one-time buys and kind of like accelerated buy programs where you can say like, hey, I've got this chunk of cash that I took out of my 401k or, got to pay out of whatever, and I want to put this to work pretty quickly. And we'll just, basically let you say, I want to put that in as soon as it funds, just buy it immediately, or I want to do that over 5 days, or I want to do that over 3 weeks, or whatever it is. You'll be able to schedule out, how many buys you want to split that chunk into, and essentially do like kind of like an accelerated DCA allocation with a chunk of fiat, kind of like just the kind of same way that a broker would help you dollar cost average into a stock or something like that. And again, and we'll be launching daily buys, so not just weekly. You'll be able to sign up for daily purchases,
nice.
7 days a week. So that'll be pretty cool. We're also going to add entity accounts. So you've only been able to do individual accounts with your own name so far. And basically what that lets you do is the checkbook LLC IRA thing. So you can do self-custody of Bitcoin buying through Swan and put it in an IRA. So that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah. So when you combine, being able to do these large and no limits anymore either, because wires don't have limits. We have a limit of 4,900 on the ACH. You might be muted, by the way. Maybe that's intentional because you're typing, but that's fine. Not hearing your exclamations of joy, but I can see your face and you're super excited.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay,
but
cool.
Yeah, so we have no upper limit on wires, so you'll be able to like wire us $1 million if you are that kind of G, and we'll dole that out into Bitcoin however you want us to. So I think that's really exciting. It's kind of the next leg up. We've proven that there's this appetite for buying Bitcoin through Swan, and people love the lowest fees in the US for automatic recurring purchases. And we got the automatic withdrawals turned on a couple months ago, and people love that. And I'm just excited to be able to serve, more people for more of what they want. I know you and I have a lot of mutual connections that have said, as soon as you guys add one-time purchases and daily, yep, I'm in. Well, you know what? We know who you are. I can search for you on Twitter and Telegram. I'll find you, and you're coming over to Swan as soon as we turn those two things on.
That is awesome. And yeah, so just so you know, I actually, when you're talking, I type out the notes. So I do apologize for that. But,
no problem, man.
But that is awesome, and I'm super excited. As you know, I'm a Swan Bitcoin customer, and I'm excited for the daily purchases because for me this is that was the only piece that I couldn't do yet. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah, it's coming very soon. Yeah, I mean we choked on a giant. We're like a big snake that choked on a giant deer like 2 months ago. When the price spiked and Max Kaiser went on some big media shows and shilled Swan. And it so happened to be like 3 days after we were dealing with a bunch of fraud rings. And so basically we were like redoing our whole fraud prevention thing and installing all these new tools to detect fraud at the same time as dealing with 10 to 20x daily volume of signups at the exact same time. So yeah, we got through all of that and everything's clean now and everybody's getting onboarded, fast and as they should again. And that's actually about to get way, way faster, but we'll announce that when it comes to it. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I think, we started off saying kind of sucks that Bitcoin's been going sideways, but selfishly for Swan, it's been amazing because, we got live and then you figure out everything that needs to be fixed. And then you spend, a couple months fixing it, and we're almost at the end of that. So basically, as of, for Swan's purposes, it's totally cool if on August 15th-ish, if Bitcoin wants to go to like 14, 15K, like mid-August, like we're totally good with that. So whales, if you're listening and like you were worried about like Swan being able to handle like increased demand, like give us another like 3 weeks or so. And then like, sure, rocket to the moon. All good.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, I can definitely go for kind of an end of summer pump. That would be nice.
Yeah,
Definitely like to see that.
Me too. Cool.
Anything else you want to throw down?
I don't know. I mean, if you want to check it out, like swanbitcoin.com/coinicarus, I believe is the best way to buy Bitcoin, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. Thank you so much. You're so funny.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's the way to go. Yeah, man. I don't know. It's a weird time, but I also feel like this whole lockdown weirdness we humans are very, very good at rationalizing anything that's happened in our past and making things that were painful seem very small and very short. And I don't know how long this will last. Like, I think life will be weird and very volatile through November, just through the elections. And there's a lot of things that are going to get papered over until then, just with money printing. And then I don't know what the fuck is going to happen over the winter with, maybe COVID round, whatever it is, 2 or 3 or whatever, back in full swing. I have no confidence we don't have a SARS vaccine, a cold vaccine, or a flu vaccine that works. Like, why would I expect that they would magically come up with something that is now 6 strains? And, it's just like, so whatever. I'm pretty sure that we're all just going to like have COVID every once in a while. And like some of us will die. And like, that's just the new normal and like, whatever, who cares? But it seems scary thinking about that future. But when we look back on it from like 2024, 2025, and it's just normal, we won't really think about it anymore.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to say, like to friends or like nieces or nephews or like, my wife that gets worried sometimes, just try to explain like, this is all just going to kind of seem like we humans are the best machines at rationalizing things that have happened in the past.
Oh yeah.
For good and for bad. But in this case, it will be very good that our mental and genetic makeup gives us that skill to be able to handle this weirdness that we're going through.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's like, not only do we rationalize, but we also manage to create patterns as well. We always find a pattern in something that has no patterns. So it's so weird. And you're absolutely right. I look forward to the day that this is a blip, that I think of it as a blip,
Bro, I'll see you there in a citadel called Bright Orange Future. And we'll high five when you walk in.
I would live there. Great. I would totally live there, Cory. Totally. I love the name. I love it.
Totally.
Okay, you got to make it.
It's going to be in Southern California.
That's okay.
But the taxes here by then are going to be like 4% instead of 37%.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, that's part of the Bright Orange Future.
Now that is irresponsible marketing of Southern California, because that shit is never going to happen.
Well, so then people shouldn't take that as investment advice. But the Bright Orange Future, that they can think about.
It's happening.
It's
right. Happening, and it's full of opportunity, because there will be great things and broken things, and the broken things are going to be the ones that we need to solve. So,
agreed.
Bitcoin fixes this, but it's going to break a lot of things that need to be broken, and we're going to have to remake those things.
Yeah.
Better. Anyway.
Totally.
All right, I'm out.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Talk soon.
As always, all details will be in the show notes. I hope you guys enjoyed my chat with Cory. His contact details will be there as well. And of course, if you want to reach me by Twitter or Telegram, I am at Coinicarus. If you want to shoot me an email, I am at Coinicarus. I'm Coinicarus at funwithbitcoin.com. Thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you all next time.